let's take this aqua colored one. That's what I call it, number 1. Now, we're going to write on it. We're trying to find this one thing right here, but we don't have enough information to go straight there. Now, look what this is including. It's the idea that you have a 45, 45, 90 up here. See, if you want to put your 45 degrees in here. And then what is the leg? Let's see, when we find this, it's the hypotenuse of this one, but it's the leg of this 45, 45, 90. So to get to this, we've got to first get to that right there. The rule for getting, and I could ask, it's probably going to be easier for me to just kind of talk you through it, or y'all can help me out a little bit. To get from the leg of a 45, 45, 90, what do I do to get to the hypotenuse? Okay, as a group, we will say multiply by the square root of 2. Now, let me give you some ideas that when you're doing the 45, 45, 90, everything is tied together by the square root of 2. You either multiply by square root of 2 or you divide by square root of 2. Multiply, divide. To get from the leg to the hypotenuse, multiply. To get from the hypotenuse to the leg. Now, the way I remember, because here's what happens. Let's do it this way. 30, 60, 90 are tied together with the numbers square root of 3 and the numbers 2. You know, this ties together the short leg, long leg. And this ties together the short leg and the hypotenuse. Now, I'm going to tell you that most people, and if you'll think about what it is, if you think about a 45, 45, 90 being half of a square, you know the two legs have to be the same. If you think about a 30, 60, 90 being half of an equilateral triangle, then you know that the short leg has to be half of the hypotenuse because of the way it's set up. Remember when we drew it, it was going to be this relationship and this side are the same, so this little piece here has to be half of it. Now, what most people get messed up is they'll want to use square root of 3 here, and they'll use square root of 2 here. They'll want to switch those numbers. Now, it's not a good rule, but it's the best I can do for you. When I say the square root of 2, I remember that the 45, 45, 90 is the one that has two angles the same. So I say the 2 goes with the 45, 45. And then the square root of 3, I have 3 different angles. So that's the way. Now, again, it's not a great one. You could say 3 with 30 if that's the way you want to do it. But somehow you got to know which one goes to which. So back to this one. When I multiply this one by the square root of 2, I get for this hypotenuse 7 square root of 2. This has now become the leg of this 45, 45, 90. So if it asks, that's 7 square root of 2, and this one would be 7 square root of 2 if you want to write it on there. Then we know the tie between a 45, 45, 90 to the hypotenuse is, again, multiply by, for the leg, it's now become a leg, and you multiply by square root of 2 again. So you've got x equals 7 square root of 2 times square root of 2. Now, you know why, I think you can see here why I would not give you one of these on a quiz or even on exam or anything, because look, you miss this, you're going to miss this automatically. There's just too many pieces in the puzzle. Outside gives you 7, inside gives you square root of 4. What'd I do? Oh, not on screen, thank you. Outside gives me 7, inside gives me 4. 7 times the square root of 4 is 7 times 2, which is 14, and that's my x. Now you got 2, and you have a mixture of these. You have some that have 2 45, 45, 90s. You have some that have 2 30, 60, 90s, and then some that are a mixture of a 30, 60, 90 and a 45, 45, 90. So now we're going to use our 30, 60 rules up here for this one. We've got to get, now think through what we're doing. We got to get from the long leg to the, because we're trying to get down here to this. Now, the only way you can work a 30, 60, 90 is go from long leg to short leg first. Excuse me, hypotenuse to short. You always got to get your short leg first. Okay, always. Then we'll go from short leg to the long leg, which is the hypotenuse of this one, and then we'll go from the hypotenuse back to the leg of that one. Now, you have one like this in your classwork, and most of you, when you went from the hypotenuse to the short leg, and if you remember, they're tied together by 2, and you would divide by 2, and most of you wrote it on your classwork, 3.5. Most of the time, you don't put decimals and radicals together, so I'm going to write it like you see it in Algebra 2 and you see it in college, especially in trigonometry, is they're going to write it 7/2. You know, those improper fractions. You put 3.5, I'm not going to count it wrong, but it's just not the notation most people use. Now, to get from, so that was hypotenuse to short leg, divide by 2. Now, a short leg to long leg is multiply, let's write it on the arrow, multiply by square root of 3. And I actually probably need to come over here and do that 7/2 times the square root of 3. And I'm going to put it over 1. See it? It's kind of in the shadows. So I get 7 square root of 3 over 2. And some of you wrote, you had this problem in your classwork. You wrote 3.5 square root of 3. That's fine. So this is 7 square root of 3 over 2. Now this has now become the hypotenuse, and we're going to the short leg. So hypotenuse and short leg are tied together by the number 2. So we're going to take, now watch my arithmetic, because when you put that 3.5 and dividing by 2, it could get a little crazy. So we're going to do it like this. We're going to do it old school, just with fractions. We call it KFC. Y'all ever use that one? Or some people call it KCF. It's keep the first one, 7 square root of 3 over 2. Change the multiplication to the division to multiplication, and flip the second one, which is formerly known the reciprocal. So now you get 7 square root of 3 over 4, and that is your x. Now you can see it's a great worksheet for knowing your rules and knowing if they're, because I can't tell you that you wouldn't see them, you know, a 30, 60, 90 over here, and then a 45, 45, 90 over here. Not necessarily in my quizzes, but you would see them, especially on the ACT. These are great because, remember, 60 problems, 60 minutes. If you've got one, you want to be able to do it fast. Not have to do the Pythagorean theorem, which you could do here, but, oh my goodness, it would just get horrendously long. Number 3, and we'll be through it. I guess that's the orange one, page 61. So you got to use both set of rules because you're going from the leg of a 45, 45, 90. You're going to, and that's probably the hardest part, is to figure out which way you got to go. So we got to go to the hypotenuse of the 45, 45, 90. You always have to go to the short leg of the 30, 60, 90 if you don't know it. And then we'll go from the short leg to the hypotenuse. The rule from the leg to the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 is multiply by square root of 2. Multiply square root of 2. So for this little hypotenuse, it's 9 square root of 2. Now this has now become your long leg of your 30, 60, 90. To get, remember, the long leg and the short leg are tied together by the square root of 3. So you're going to have to divide by square root of 3 to get the short leg. So I'll just do it here. I think I got room. 9 square root of 2 divided by the square root of 3. Oh, let's just write it like this. Yeah, because both of them are just no fractions involved. We can just do this. Nothing cancels, 3's inside, 9's outside, but I can rationalize. So I multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3. You see how it ties everything together we've done in the last 4 or 5 lessons. So on the top, I get 9 square root of 6. And on the bottom, I get the square root of 9. And what's the square root of 9? 3. Anything cancel? The 9 and the 3. See, the 6 is inside. We can't. Very good. It's the rational part of it. We do these in Algebra 2. I say rational, irrational more with them. And so for this little piece, I get 3 square root of 6. Now, to get from the short leg to the hypotenuse, you multiply by 2. So 2 times 3 square root of 6, yes, I'm on screen, is 6 square root of 6. And that is your x.